Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me, as always, is Mark Souza. Got a lot to talk about in the world of football. We got Kareem Hunt going to a new team. We'll tell you where. You probably already know, but we'll give you more information. Demaryius Thomas gets cut by the Houston Texans. We'll see how he fares in the future. And also Kyler Murray and his commitment to football. What does that mean for the draft and other draft things that need to happen? We'll also probably be talking about some free agent stuff too while we're at it. But first, obviously, Kareem Hunt is the main story. He is signing a one-year, $1 million contract with the Cleveland Browns. There was discussion of him going to Chicago. I think that was the favorite at one point. But no, he's going to Cleveland. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Very interesting move. I mean, this is a team, the Browns, that has a very good young running back in Nick Chubb, who is one of the darlings of the 2018 season, arguably a Rookie of the Year candidate if he had played the full season as a starting running back for the Cleveland Browns. He was super impressive, behind obviously Saquon Barkley, but after him, I think Chubb was probably the second best rookie running back, maybe the second best rookie player of last year. In my opinion, I think he looked even better than his counterpart at Georgia, Sony Michel, who starred for the Patriots and scored the Super Bowl's only touchdown. But very interesting because, you know, the Browns, they invested a high second-round pick, and Chubb has looked to be every bit of what they hoped he would be. And for the Browns to go ahead and take the chance on a player like Kareem Hunt, you know, because of the backlash that they'll get, the media stuff and things like that, it is interesting to me. It is a one-year contract, a $1 million contract, so not a lot of risk in terms of that, but we are talking about a player who will be suspended by the NFL. We're not sure how long that will be, but it definitely is a risk for that franchise.
Yes, absolutely, and he is, like we all said, he's going through that domestic violence issue. That happened in last February. So it's been a year since that actually happened, but it was under the radar because he kind of lied to the Kansas City Chiefs, hence why I think that was one of the main crucial reasons he was cut. And so now he was, he could have been a huge help for them in the AFC title game, honestly, but that's what happens. And now he's going to play for a Cleveland Browns team that already has a very successful running back for the future, Nick Chubb. So obviously Nick Chubb's still their guy, but once Hunt's suspension, which we think it's almost inevitable, he will be suspended, is over, is he going to share like half the snaps, you think, with Chubb and Hunt together, or do you think it's going to be like Hunt's going to be in very rarely?
No, I think, you know, after he serves his suspension, whatever that may be, I definitely think it'll be closer to 50-50. Maybe not 50-50, but I would expect like a 60-40 split. I mean, honestly, man, like Kareem Hunt, when he's at his best, he's arguably one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the NFL. So he brings a lot to the table. He's arguably better than Nick Chubb. I mean, it's hard to say. Chubb has the advantage because he will start the season as a starter. He will. He ended the season on a big note. And, you know, it will take time for Kareem Hunt to get involved in the offense. But, yeah, I mean, obviously you want to use both players. And Kareem Hunt provides a little bit more in the passing game that Nick Chubb really doesn't. I mean, not that he can't do it, but Kareem Hunt has the obvious advantage as a third down running back. So I expect maybe a 60-40 type split, but that could swing in Kareem Hunt's favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I'm kind of upset if I'm Nick Chubb because once he returns and he takes most of his snaps, he's taking a lot away from him, honestly. I think he deserves to be the number one running back on that team and deserves 25, 30 carries like the main running backs do in the NFL. And it's getting taken away from him by Kareem Hunt. And I understand if you're Cleveland, you want the best possible players on your team. But would you feel a little resentment if you're Nick Chubb or feel a little frustrated if you're Nick Chubb?
I would feel a little bit, I guess, put off by it. Just
understandably so. It's just like you picked me as to be the guy, and now you're taking this other guy who's great, no doubt about it, but he's going to take away some of my responsibility that I thought I had.
And, he'll be asked about it. So, he's going to constantly be asked questions like, you and Kareem Hunt? What do you think about
That's probably
going to
lead. They're probably going to try to add some tension to it, but I don't think it'll be that big of a factor when it comes down to it between the relationship between Hunt and Chubb. I think it'll be just a professional relationship, and I don't see it to be like a Trillo and Stunner McNabb kind of tense scenario. But I think the media will try to twist it around, though.
The good thing for that in terms of the Browns or the Nick Chubb side of it is that we're still a couple months away from Nick Chubb's not going to be in front of a camera or in front of a microphone for a while unless he does a radio show or something like that.
Which
there's going to be no media in his face. He's not obligated to do a press conference every week like he does during the season. He's
so you think this was the right time to do this so he's not bombarded right away?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't know if it was the right time or wrong time to do this, but because of the timing, it's going to be something that settles in over the next couple months before those questions are even asked.
Mm-hmm. And obviously for Kareem Hunt, this is more of an audition type of year because it's only 1 year deal. He will be a free agent next season. Restricted, you said they can match any contract.
He will be a restricted free agent, which is the most interesting part of this deal because that means that a team will have to pay him quite a bit of money to steal him from the Browns because if you're the Browns and you can get him on the cheap again, why wouldn't you, right? So
the thing is with that is I got to say, Kareem Hunt maybe did this 1 year deal to show he can still play, and by next free agency...
But we know he can still play. He only took it so he can prove that he can stay out of trouble. We know that he didn't get cut because he couldn't play. He got cut because the Chiefs decided to take a stand. We know that dude is an absolute monster on the football field. He didn't get hurt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I understand that. And the fact is, if he does stay out of trouble and he does have a pretty solid season, he's going to be the hottest commodity going into next free agency. He's going to be the guy everyone's going to be gunning for, this year's Le'Veon Bell, for example. And so even this year's free agency is interesting, but this makes next year's free agency a whole lot more interesting. Already. Before the season begins, we're already looking at next season and thinking it's going to be possibly the Kareem Hunt sweepstakes.
Possibly. Yeah. And
because he's we were talking about before on the sports podcast, he's only 23 years old.
Yeah. And
he's extremely young.
And now that he's under contract and he's a restricted free agent, I mean, technically the Browns could match any contract and then try and trade him. I mean, it's a possibility now that could happen.
Okay. God, you know what would not surprise me? Actually, it kind of would, but I can see it happening, a possibility. They trade him at the deadline. Try to get something good for him because it's only 1 year, $1 million. They're not risking a whole lot financially for him. They could probably steal a draft pick or two.
The problem is that will he even play before the deadline?
That is a good question. It all depends on his let's say
they moved it up to week 8, right? It used to be week 10, but I think it's week 8 in the NFL.
All right, let's say his suspension ends at week 7 and he plays and has a pretty solid 150-yard game. I'm just using an example, just hypothetically. Would you try to trade him before the deadline?
I mean, that would be I've never seen anything like that happen before.
That's why I said hypothetically, but I mean, we've been surprised before. Have we seen a 41-year-old win 6 Super Bowls before? No.
No. We haven't seen anyone win 6.
Yeah, so exactly my point.
I mean, I don't know. Sure, why not? Are you talking about for the Browns? If you're the Browns, are you trying to trade him?
Yeah, you're trying to see what you can get for him.
Maybe, but what if you're in the middle of a playoff run?
I think Nick Chubb can handle the heavy runs on his own, honestly.
Right, but if you're in the middle of a playoff run and you feel like you legitimately have a chance to win the Super Bowl and you have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, why not just run go the course of the season and see if you win?
I understand it, but if I'm offered a first-round pick or something, I'm not going to turn that down immediately. I'm going to have to consider that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a first-round pick at all for him because he's a restricted free agent, but you can just sign him. So, like, if you're a team, you'll just wait till he's a free agent and then give him a massive contract instead of giving him a massive contract plus giving the other team a first-round pick.
You're giving some of these franchises a little too much credit for being more intelligent than you think.
Let's be honest, man. Kareem Hunt signed for a 1-year, $1 million contract. Nobody in their right mind is giving anyone a first-round pick for this guy.
Yeah, true. But I've seen crazier. But anyways, I do agree with you. The fact that it's probably not the best thing to trade him on deadline, but I think it could happen. I think they'd be considering offers, but I don't think they would take any. But regardless, I think the fact is this is his redemption chance, and next year's free agency is going to be the biggest for him, and he's going to get the contract that he really wants. Because he did lose a ton of money being cut by the Chiefs for sure, and this season's going to try to get him back into that good spotlight and get him that massive deal.
I'm very surprised that he signed there. Him and his agent must feel like not many other teams were in on him because, like, I think that there's a better role for him.
I heard there
elsewhere.
were multiple teams interested in him, though. Didn't you?
Yeah, maybe it's his relationship with John Dorsey. I mean, he does have ties with Kareem Hunt.
Like a good relationship.
He knows him very well. But still, I just feel like he could have maybe joined a team.
I think someone could give him like a 3-year deal, to be honest with you. Something.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, look, we're speculating, right? We don't even know what teams completely, like, no, we won't hire Kareem Hunt. Like, we don't even know how many teams like
true.
that.
Very true.
Because you could say, like, oh, there's a team like San Francisco or Oakland that could really use a guy like Kareem Hunt because of his talents. Maybe the offense fits. Maybe the opportunity is there, but we don't even know if those teams are interested in going after him.
True.
It's so hard to speculate. Like,
seems to me they're both going after Le'Veon Bell more than anything.
Like, let's be honest, Kareem Hunt has the ability to be the biggest bargain in the NFL next year. A $1 million contract for a guy who's arguably top 5 at his position and one of the biggest game changers in the NFL. Like,
yes,
period.
but he will have been gone for roughly a year.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, when was like week 12 that he got?
And he's going to roughly be back around that same time based off suspension.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody's worried about that. Le'Veon Bell's about to get like $75 million and he missed a year. So,
but he's going to be coming back regardless in the middle of the season, and we really don't know how he's going to perform. It's still because Le'Veon Bell is also a question mark that people are willing to risk for. And it's not his attitude that's the issue. It's the money problem. This one also has added his off-the-field antics towards it, so that might affect that as well.
I am shocked, though, that it is relatively cheap business for the Browns. Like,
it's no harm, no foul at all.
I know the Bears said that they would consider signing him. I mean, that seems like that'd be a really good spot.
I mean, 1 year, $1 million, that's a bargain if you ask. That's one of the cheapest things I've ever seen for a guy of that caliber.
Like, if you think about it, just fit-wise and opportunity, there's more than half the league that it would make sense to get Kareem Hunt. Like, really. Like about half the league.
Let's be honest. Any team could use Kareem Hunt. Like, every team. So,
but we don't know how long he'll be suspended, and that's a big deal, right? Like,
that's probably why people were so worried about signing him based off a future suspension because it's happening.
I think he's getting 8 games at least. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they navigate this. But we know how the NFL has been destroyed in the past for not suspending guys, quote unquote, for long enough for the public opinion. So I think they're going to suspend him more harshly than they would in a different year, just because of everything that's just gone on in the NFL and the NFL trying to rehabilitate its image in terms of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we really don't know what the suspension is going to be or how long it's going to be.
For Reuben Foster. Like, Reuben Foster has an interesting situation himself, you know?
Yeah, and the Redskins handled that really well.
Yeah, we don't know. Like, yes, we know the charges were dropped, but this is the 4th time he was arrested in a year. It's just a lot of stuff.
Kareem has had supposedly 1 or 2 instances and no arrests from my knowledge. Reuben Foster's been arrested 4 times. That one should be longer than Kareem's, in my opinion. Because Reuben Foster's actually been arrested multiple times with the same scenario. So why I think he should be getting longer suspension. Wouldn't you agree? Or would you say Kareem Hunt should get the longer one?
I think Kareem Hunt is going to get at least the same amount of games as Reuben Foster.
Is it because of his just it was a video of it, or is it because of his like his status?
The video makes a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It just does.
The video makes him look extremely aggressive, I'll give you that, because he was held back by multiple guys in that video, which does not help his cause, because if he just walked away from it and the guys just held him back and he walked away from it, that's one thing. He kept pushing it. He kept pushing to get towards her. That was the issue.
The problem is that when there's video, it makes things like that much worse. I mean, it just does. Like, people are visually, they see something and they're more taken aback
when you evidence say, rather than assumption.
Yeah, when you hear woman was allegedly smacked in the face or allegedly kicked by an athlete, you're like, okay, well, what happened? Did he touch her? How bad was it? You have all these questions, and you kind of give the benefit of the doubt to the player. You kind of do, just subconsciously. But when there's video, you're like, oh, well, that doesn't look good.
Yeah. Like, Ray Rice is never going to play it down in the NFL again because of the fact, if he wasn't on tape and okay.
No, it's true.
But
it's a harsh reality.
Yeah.
If he wasn't on tape, he wouldn't have been suspended. He wasn't. Like, he wasn't suspended until the tape came out.
Yeah.
Same with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, the NFL knew that this happened months and months and months before, and then a video surfaced, and then he was like, oh, he can't play.
Publicly, yes.
So the NFL, and I think that's part of it too, right? That's part of why I think Kareem Hunt will be suspended harshly, is because the NFL's inability to nip this in the bud when it happened. They are now going to be forced to...
They're damage control.
Yeah, now they're going to be forced to maybe suspend him longer than they would have because it's a image thing, right?
I mean, looking at both the tapes of Ray Rice and Kareem Hunt, Ray Rice was a little more violent, a little more gruesome, in my opinion. Just based off the fact he not only hit her and she hit the guardrail and all that stuff in the elevator, but he dragged her out, which... Why... There's just so many questions about the Ray Rice incident that I still have not been answered in my head. Like, none of that made sense to me and what went through his mind going through all of that. But regardless, Kareem Hunt is now in that situation. He is now in the kind of this cesspool at the moment of question marks and suspensions. That's probably going to happen. And so we'll see how he recovers from this. But regardless, it's not as... I don't like to say it like this, but like Ray Rice was a little more gruesome, and that's why he's
it was. I mean, him just knocking out his fiance at the time. I mean, it is like obviously we're not going to sit here and be like, oh well, you know, this domestic violence is better than the other, but like no, the image of him just cold cocking her
and
straight in the face and dragging her is a very harsh image stuck in people's heads.
It's disturbing. It's absolutely disturbing.
Now, Kareem Hunt, what people saw, yes, you're shocked by it, yes, but it wasn't. It wasn't as, I mean, honestly, just physically speaking, it wasn't a dangerous act like what Ray Rice could have like killed the woman. Like he really could.
If she hit her head on that rail even harder,
like he could
one way or
have
another,
concussed her. He could have like give her a lot of
hematoma
like,
or something. Like some serious damage could have happened. And with Kareem Hunt, he did shove a guy into her, and she hit the wall pretty hard. I will say that.
Yeah.
And people are upset about the kick, but I didn't see much about the kick. The pushing to the wall was what made me understand this is domestic violence because she hit that wall hard.
Obviously.
And then people look at the kick. I don't see the kick as the biggest of deals because of the fact he barely I don't even think he hit her. But I see the hitting the wall as the biggest part of that. That's probably what hurt her the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, it's one of those things where all these incidents are terrible. And we'll see what the NFL does with Reuben Foster, what they do with Kareem Hunt. But, yes, it's a black eye on the league. It has been a black eye for the league for a long time. So, yeah, we should take a break, and then when we come back, we should talk a little Kyler Murray. We'll talk a little Demaryius Thomas. a big-time college prospect who now has his draft stock in complete jeopardy after something that happened during training. And Antonio Brown in the news again for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, and we'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Finishing up our discussion of Kareem Hunt. We already went through that. And now we have possibly a career in jeopardy. You want to tell us more?
No. I want to talk about Kyler Murray.
Oh, you want to do that first?
Yeah.
I thought you wanted to do Demaryius Thomas first.
No, Kyler Murray is a bigger story.
Well, I mean, that we should say that best for last. That's what I was assuming. But okay.
You can't do that in podcasts or in journalism.
Yeah, you can.
You got to give people what they want, you know?
Why did they do the NFL Top 10 stuff at the end of the show, or the ESPN Top 10 at the end of the show? That's the best part, roughly.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, you don't want the main event to be at the beginning of the show. We gotta build it up.
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania main event isn't the first match of the night.
There's got to be a reason why they do it. I mean, I'm sure the analytics support what they do. So,
what do you think, our fans? Do you think main event should be first or last? And we'll answer that with this.
Well, the main event's different because if you already have somebody's attention, it's like the movie. You're not going to give away the ending until the end. But yeah, you already have somebody sitting there.
Okay, we're getting off topic. All right,
yeah.
Continuing.
Kyler Murray has fully committed to the NFL, which leads me to believe that means he's not attending spring training baseball, as that is 3 days away. So I'm assuming that's the case. I don't know if that is what everybody else is assuming when he says, I'm fully committing to football. What do you think about that?
I think it's to move his stock. Personally, I think it's like, I think football's going to be where I'm going to be better at, like, overall, because I think he knows he won't be able to make it to the major leagues. I think he'll be stuck in the minor leagues if he goes there. But the bottom line for me is the fact his stock is going to rise. His stock's going to be more invested by teams that need quarterbacks rather than not. So I think this helps him in the long run in the draft. So when it comes to April when he gets drafted, he's going to be in the top 10 rather than the bottom.
I have a conspiracy theory.
Ooh. Let's hear it.
Maybe the Cardinals have already told him that they're going to pick him number 1. They're on the clock.
Technically, they are. Actually, I don't think they're literally on the clock, are they? Are they technically on the clock?
I mean, they might not be technically on the clock, but they're on the clock. Like, they're the next team to pick. So,
I love how that makes so much sense, but it feels so obvious. There's months of this clock. It's a long ass clock. But I understand what you're saying, and maybe that's the case. But what about Josh Rosen? What's going to happen to him?
I have no idea. But
are they going to trade
Josh
him?
Rosen wasn't the guy that Kingsbury picked, and I know that they have the same general manager, and I don't know if they're willing to just give up on Rosen yet. But there's theories out there that say if they like Kyler Murray, they should just take Kyler Murray.
Well, there was that.
Or anybody else.
That was that interview with Kingsbury saying he would trade Rosen and draft Murray number 1.
Right. He did say that, and that was foreshadowing
what's happening right
his
now.
Future. Yeah, he didn't. Who knew that he would end up having a losing record at Texas Tech and then wind up being a head coach of an NFL team? That's one of the more shocking things that I've seen.
Well, he should be on hands and knees and thanking Patrick Mahomes for that.
Well, I mean, he had a losing record at Texas Tech.
It's all about how Patrick Mahomes did. That's how he got this job. That's all I'm going to say about this.
Which is crazy because he had Patrick Mahomes and he had a losing record.
It's regardless. That's how he got to this point.
Interesting, huh? He also had Baker Mayfield there for a hot minute before he transferred out.
Legitimately a minute. I'm kidding. But regardless, if he does go for Murray, they're obviously going to trade Rosen.
So my conspiracy is the Cardinals have told him that they are going to draft him number 1. So then, of course, he said, all right, baseball, I am not playing you because I am going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL.
He's going to make more money there than he will in baseball for sure. And with that, I have to ask, okay, so obviously they're going for Murray. They're going to trade Rosen. What's Rosen's destination? What's Rosen's stock value for a trade?
A first-round pick.
Who's giving? All right, let me ask you: who's giving up a first-round pick?
Maybe Jacksonville Jaguars. Maybe Miami Dolphins. Maybe Denver Broncos.
So they're going to give up their 7th overall pick for Josh Rosen.
If you think that Josh Rosen's better than the quarterback that you would have taken there, yeah, you'd do it, right?
I think I would.
What is it? It doesn't matter to you. If you're the Jaguars, if you're the
Jaguars, if I can boost my stellar defense with adding another a Greedy Williams right next to Jalen Ramsey.
Well, they have AJ Bouye. They already have the best 2 combo corners.
I know, but couldn't hurt to have a third. Or a defensive tackle.
But if you're the Jaguars and you're saying we're drafting a quarterback, take away the other options. Let's just say
no matter what, it's gonna be a quarterback.
Well, let's say you're the general manager of the Jaguars and you're like, we have to draft a quarterback, number 7. We're pretty good at other positions. We feel very confident in what we have. Because I don't think the Jaguars picking it. I think if the Jaguars picked a cornerback at 7, they would get destroyed. They would get crushed by the media, and their fans would be furious. They already have the 2 best combo corners in the NFL. Yes, adding a third one is spectacular. But you can't just go throughout your team and not address the biggest position in the league. You have to pick a quarterback.
But again, there is free agency. We don't know what they're going to do free agent wise, and
right.
Also,
but there's a good chance they don't go after a high expensive free agent quarterback because
if they do think Rosen's the guy, and let's say they trade a 2nd and a 3rd, and they keep that first overall pick. I know that's unlikely, but just hear me out. Wouldn't you want to boost that defense, get another edge rusher, get another defensive tackle, and make that defense even better, which puts less pressure on Josh Rosen?
Yeah, I mean, you could, but their defense is great. They don't need another
make it even better.
player.
Obviously, they didn't do so well last season
because they couldn't throw the ball. I mean, literally, their offense was terrible.
Mm-hmm. But
was their defense historically good? No. I mean, look, it's the NFL. If your offense sucks, your defense is going to suffer some consequences, right? If your offense throws interceptions, fumbles the ball, punts all the time. But the fact is, their defense can win the Super Bowl. They don't need to fix their defense. They need a quarterback.
I never said if they needed a fix. I say they could just boost it. They can only make it better. That's what I was
But does
implying.
adding a nickel cornerback with the 7th pick in the draft actually help your defense? Really?
Well, would an edge rusher help, or would a defensive tackle help?
An edge rusher, absolutely. No, it will definitely help. But they don't have problems there, is all I'm saying. I'm going to go back and ask you the same question. If you're going to pick a quarterback with your first pick in the draft and you think Rosen's better than Haskins, you make that trade, right? Because you're not losing anything if you're the Jaguars. If you're already going to pick a quarterback. Now, if you're going to sign a quarterback and draft a defensive player, that's different. But if you're resigned to the fact, I'm the general manager of the Jaguars, I'm taking quarterback. If you like Rosen more than Haskins, you take Rosen, right? You make the trade.
The thing is with Rosen is I've always had my doubts about him because he didn't I understand he was on a very bad.
But would you agree with that? That's what I'm asking you. If you think, I'm not asking your personal opinion. If you're the general manager of the Jaguars and you are like Rosen, we liked Rosen last year. We think he's great and we think he's better than Haskins. Would Wouldn't you just make that trade? I mean, you would, right? Like, you would just be like, all right, yeah, we'd love to have Rosen. Cardinals, here's a first-round pick.
I just think, I agree. If that general manager thinks that, he will do that. But I think it's too much of a risk, in my opinion, because of the fact that Rosen didn't impress me this season. I know he was on a very bad team.
You know, there are people that say, though, that Rosen would have been the number 1 pick in a different year. That's the whole thing. I'm not a big Rosen fan. I'm just saying a lot of people were in love with Josh Rosen. I mean, there are teams that thought Rosen was the best quarterback in the draft last year.
True. But I know what team he was on and how bad his offensive line was, and he had no help. But he still had Larry Fitzgerald. He was still playing at a incredibly high level for his age, all things considered. And so for that, I just he didn't really try to make the most out of what he had. And that always made me question, was this guy as good as everyone says he is? We'll see.
Or was his team just so historically bad?
I don't think his team...
Josh Rosen's first year reminds me of Alex Smith's first year in the NFL. His team was so bad, his offense was so bad, his coaching was so bad that it was kind of a wash. You got to remember, man, he had a defensive head coach, first-time coach who lasted 1 season, and they fired their offensive coordinator halfway through the season. He had probably the hardest position ever for a rookie quarterback to be in.
Mm-hmm. But
no offensive line, the worst offensive line I think I've ever seen was the Cardinals last year. Them or the Giants, but both were god-awful. So I know what you're saying. There are doubts about Rosen, but it's hard to say, well, based on his rookie year. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like it's incomplete, not a real grade, you know?
But I just don't think the general manager thinks he's better than Haskins. I'm just assuming there's going to be a lot more doubts.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is what I'm assuming. This isn't what I don't think he thinks, but I'm assuming that he thinks Haskins has more of an upside than Rosen because of how Rosen had a very judgmental season.
I do feel like that Rosen was more hyped than Haskins last year than Haskins is this year. I do, because I think Rosen was considered a top 5 pick last year, who just happened to be the 3rd quarterback taken in a very good quarterback class. Mm-hmm. Where, let's be honest, where would Haskins be drafted if he was in last year's quarterback class? Would he be drafted before Rosen? I really don't know. I honestly don't know.
It's tough to say, but
it's possible, certainly.
It's because Ohio State is so good, I think maybe, and compared to UCLA. That's just my guess, at least.
Right.
But overall, I would say it's a tough call, but I would say maybe. I wouldn't say no, absolutely not, because of the fact Ohio State versus UCLA, you might want to go with the Ohio State Urban Meyer guy.
Yeah.
So it is a tough decision, and also you have to see what he does at the combine and all this other stuff. There's still other things we don't really know about. But
right.
Granted,
a lot of stuff's going.
Yeah, and Haskins is has a bunch of potential. I'm not taking anything away from him at all. But I understand what you're coming from. And this is the question. Is it going to be Haskins going first as a quarterback, or is it going to be Murray going first?
We don't know, yeah.
And even Drew Lock is going up there. He's moving up in the stock, as well as Daniel Jones. So we really...
Well, according to my conspiracy theory, Kyler Murray's going number 1.
Yeah, but that's still very judgmental to me. That's still very TBD, to be determined, because I will be incredibly surprised if he gets picked first overall and they trade Rosen.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you're the new head coach, your general manager, whoever hired you, said, Rosen's our guy, you just got to work with him. We know you can work with good quarterbacks. You can make him better. That's what I'm assuming they're going to use in that situation. That's why they got him in the first place, because he knows they know he can work with quarterbacks. And why wouldn't you go for a guy that can help your rookie quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
But if they give up on him after the 1 year... That puts a lot of question marks on the whole franchise, basically, in my opinion.
For the Cardinals, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but whenever there's a regime change,
True.
I don't think the Cardinals, honestly, I know that's my conspiracy theory, but I don't think they're going to give up on Rosen just yet. I really don't.
I gotta give him. I gotta give him 1 or 2 years.
The Will Kane idea, which he pitched a few weeks ago, which I don't disagree with at all. His idea is, if you're a team like the Cardinals, just draft the best quarterback, and then let them figure out who wins the job. And if it's Kyler Murray, trade Rosen. If it's Rosen, trade Kyler Murray. I kind of don't disagree with that. I know that's a different approach, and people would be like, oh my God, how could you just keep drafting quarterback after quarterback? But until you hit Tom Brady, why not try and find Tom Brady is kind of the argument, right?
Yeah. It's just it's
tough.
Honestly, having the number 1 pick is probably the most difficult thing to have in the NFL because you really can't mess up, and yet there's so many options. Mm-hmm. It's tough. It's extremely difficult. I really don't know what to do.
It's just a different theory of team building, you know? I mean, it's just like I don't necessarily disagree with that idea, that approach. I think there's something to it there because you just want to find that quarterback, and we don't know if Rosen's the guy. We don't know if Kyler Murray's the guy, right? Like, we don't know. But if we
don't even know how tall Kyler Murray is.
Let's be honest. If you draft Kyler Murray and you have Josh Rosen, and you kind of let the quarterback position decide itself by seeing who's the best player. You use preseason, you use training camp, you use everything, right? You use the season. If one struggles during the season, you play the other one, whatever. But there's a good chance if you draft Kyler Murray that one of the two will at least be pretty good. If you don't draft a quarterback, if the Cardinals don't draft a quarterback, let's put it this way. Let's say they pick Bosa. Let's just say they pick Bosa. Good player. Great, probably going to be a great player. But next year, they could be in the same situation where they're drafting first overall because Rosen isn't good, and they still haven't figured out the position, right? They could be what the New York Giants are this year. New York Giants took Saquon Barkley, great player, rookie of the year. Still trash team, you know? Like, still haven't fixed that position.
I see what you're saying, but
it's interesting to think about.
I think what's more crucial about it is like, I see what you're saying, and it just sounds like, where they got to do something right sooner or later. It's got to work sometime. And every draft a quarterback every single year, one's got to be good, right? That's kind of like what you're saying. But that I feel like if you draft another quarterback this year, and he's just as bad as, or just starts really sloppy as Rosen does, you're back another year. Your team's going backwards even more than it already was. Because you're not filling up the other necessary spots, like an offensive tackle. Honestly, I think they should take an offensive tackle in the first round. Or something. I know they need defense, but their defense was actually not too bad, all things considered.
I know that me and you we both, our draft philosophy, we disagree on draft, like we just do. Like we have a existential disagreement when it comes to this.
Yeah.
Like you prefer drafting for a need-based strategy where I say quarterback's most important. Let me figure out my quarterback, and then I'll start filling in the gaps. It's just like if I was a basketball team, I'm not drafting a small forward because I need a small forward. I'm drafting the best player. If he's a small forward, great, awesome, fantastic, perfect. But if he's a shooting guard and I already have Kobe Bryant, I'm still taking the next best player. Like I want to use the draft as loading up on blue chip talent, and I'll fill in the gaps with my later picks and also free agency, if that makes sense. That's just my philosophy. It doesn't mean it's perfect or right.
I think both our philosophies work with different teams, to be honest with you.
It just depends, right, on how you perceive it. So.
Yeah, exactly. And like obviously we're gonna disagree with each other, but we're not saying one of our philosophies is wrong and the other one's right. We're just gonna go with our own assumptions.
And
basically.
Teams have that different philosophy. We know teams will draft based on need. We know teams will draft based on what I said, right? Like they'll draft. I'm just always a best player available guy. I just am, because I think when you start trying to team build around need. Now, if you're look, there's exceptions, right? Mm-hmm. If you're the Golden State Warriors, and let's say DeMarcus Cousins isn't there, right? And they're like, oh well, center is the only position where we don't have an all-star.
Yeah,
maybe I draft an all-star because I already have such a good team that it doesn't really matter. But yeah, in the NFL, it's just one of those leagues where the talent is so close all the time. I just want to keep finding the little bit extra talent at every pick, right? Even if it means I'm, like you said. What I disagreed with you before was kind of was kind of a best player available argument. When you said the Jaguars, they should go get Greedy Williams, or you thought maybe they could get Greedy Williams, and I said they already have two hella good cornerbacks. Why would they do that? Mm-hmm. But at that moment, you were like, that might be the best player available. They would just have 3 stud corners,
and that would just only boost. We both go back and forth on this, but I think the main philosophy is like, what does the team think they need the most, and who's the best available player in that position? I think that's what mainly is looked at. But I could be totally wrong. It could be what you say, like who's averages the best regardless of position. That's why I think Bosa's projected to go number 1 overall, because people say he's the best at that position. That makes him the best player available in the draft, because that's highly touted. Edge rushing is like the top thing about this draft is the edge rusher or the defensive tackle or defensive position regardless. So that's why he's touted to go first. I still have my doubts about Bosa, to be honest with you. Him and his brother have injury concerns to me, major injury concerns to me. So I don't know what the Cardinals will do. And honestly, like the 49ers draft right after on the second pick, that's going back and forth as well. It used to be just Josh Allen, or now it's Quentin Williams, now it's Josh Allen, now it's Quentin Williams, goes back and forth on that aspect. And for the Niners, they need an edge rusher. They need a defensive tackle. So they're just getting lucky in this whole draft situation, because they're going with what they need the most is the best available player in that position.
Right.
So they're getting both of our options, basically. Both of our philosophies when it comes to drafting. So, but the Cardinals, I think, are in the most tight spot just due to this whole talk about Kyler Murray. I think they're in a very because I don't think anyone knows who they're really going to draft.
Yeah, no one.
So I like when we really don't know who the first overall pick is. I hate the fact that we sometimes know who guaranteed is the first overall pick. Like sometimes you just know, like Andrew Luck or something like that. But this year, like in last year too, you can add last year as well. Remember, Baker Mayfield wasn't supposed to go first, and we got picked first. Everyone's like, "Oh, really?" I like that. I like that feeling. Oh, that's in. I didn't expect that. That's nice. That's a nice surprise. Which I could expect that this season. And I'm predicting right now, I could be totally wrong, but I just have this feeling Nick Bosa will not be drafted number 1 overall.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I understand why people are considering him, because his brother and just the legacy of that family. And he had a good season with Ohio State before. He's played great with Ohio State in the past. But this injury and him quitting on Ohio State gave me concerns right away.
I don't think I don't think any of that will be a problem. But I don't think he'll get picked number 1, just because I think there's a good chance that the Cardinals draft someone like Kyler Murray, and I also think there's a good chance that they could just draft a guy like Josh Allen. Like, for me, I think Bosa still is probably has the highest odds of being picked number 1, but I'd say there's like a 40% chance that he's picked number 1, whereas like all the other options make up the other 60%, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's not like an A and B, but like a A, B, C, D, and B, C, and D equals 60%. So I still think Bosa's the likely favorite, but I would bet against him being picked.
Yeah, and this is a serious, like, this is just got nothing but question marks until the day of the draft. So we really don't know what's really going to go on, but it's still, like, obviously free agency also happens before then. So if the Cardinals make some moves in free agency, those moves will dignify where they're going to go in the draft. Mm-hmm. So it all comes down to how free agency goes into it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we should take a break for sure. We're a little bit overdue. When we come back, we'll talk about Demaryius Thomas. Speaking of draft, a major prospect who now is looking at a major injury, Antonio Brown, and the Bucs release a player 1 year after signing him to a big contract. All
right, then. We'll take a look at that when we come back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Just finished talking about the Kyler Murray controversies that have been going on, and we even have a Ace the Bunny Ventura or Jesse the Bunny Ventura conspiracy theory for Mark over here. I don't know why I said Ace. Jesse the Bunny Ventura conspiracy by you. But now let's look at another prospect. You have some unfortunate news.
We could talk about Demaryius Thomas first. So it looks like the Texans are going to cut Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah,
which makes a lot of financial sense.
The rumors are they're expected to release, so we'll see how that all goes. But regardless, it's a big bummer for him. He was traded there to put them into a better position for the playoffs, but he got injured in Week 16 before the playoffs began, so he never got that opportunity. But it's a shame to see all that. It's a shame to see how that's all unfortunately going. So hopefully I hope for the best of him, and I hope he finds a good team to go to, but it seems like his career is at the end of it. It's at its last legs.
Yeah, he's turning 31. It makes financial sense just because of the fact that if the Texans were to keep him, they'd owe him $14 million. If they release him, they owe him not a single dime. He doesn't have any guaranteed money left on his deal. He already received all the guaranteed money, which is $40 million out of $70. So he has been paid handsomely, but he will probably not see the last $14 million of that because of that devastating Achilles injury at the end of the season. The timing, very unfortunate too, as that injury usually takes about a year to recover from, and we know it was near the end of the season. It's possible he might miss this entire season, man.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. Because he's always been such an impactful player. He made Tim Tebow look like a mastermind, during the whole Tebow era. Remember that? Remember Skip Bayless?
I remember his touchdown against the Steelers.
And I don't understand why people gave Tebow so much credit for that. That was like a 5-yard slant, and Demaryius Thomas ran 80 yards. Mm-hmm. That's just how I felt about it. I'm like, Demaryius Thomas did all the work. And so with that, I say I have always had respect and admiration for Demaryius Thomas. He was a great player, fantasy football-wise as well. And so I hope he finds a team. I think he'll be a good role model, a mentor for other teams in that situation. So I think he can find a place, just not in as a number 1, 2, 3 receiver. I just think as more of a mentor. Yeah,
so unfortunate for him. He's probably going to be a free agent. Maybe he'll get signed. Sometimes teams will sign players when they're rehabbing to put them through their rehab process and all that, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. We all wish for the best to him. What was the prospect you wanted to talk about?
Yes. So there is a defensive lineman. In fact, Todd McShay has this lineman going 7th to the Jaguars in his latest mock draft. We're talking about the Jaguars and what they might seem to do. Jeffrey Simmons, defensive lineman from Mississippi State, definitely one of the top 12 prospects on most big boards. He suffers what is likely a torn ACL while he was training for the combine. So that's obviously devastating news for him, as this likely puts him out of the first round. I would say a second, third rounder maybe. A team will probably pick him and stash him for a year. But yeah, that's really unfortunate because we know that there's a big difference in an NFL contract for rookies when you're a first-round pick than when you're not. So
it's in the millions how much that changes.
And a year less. The 5th year for a rookie is oftentimes the biggest financial gain of their career, and you don't receive that when you are a non-first rounder. So unfortunately for Jeffrey Simmons, they are hoping the news is good, but it doesn't sound promising. I want to talk about Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown's been found guilty of reckless driving. He was cited for driving over 100 miles an hour.
This just happened?
No. Well, he was just found guilty because he failed to appear. And
that kind of does it.
Yeah, you can do that, but you just are obviously admitting that you're guilty if you do that. So He did not appear. He's found guilty of reckless driving. I don't know if it's big news, but it obviously isn't helping his off-the-field case lately in terms of maybe him possibly
Maybe
being
it's that
traded.
weird blonde mustache he's got.
Maybe it is.
Have you seen that? It looks weird, right? It's not just me. That looks weird.
Yeah. It does look interesting. It
Sorry,
looks like Hulk Hogan.
Oh my god, I didn't even notice that. Anyways, but yes, not showing up really doesn't help your case. But I still think someone's going to trade a lot for him. I still think that's still going to be he's still going to be a trade prospect if they're willing to trade him. I don't see him getting I think suspension will be 1 to 2 games. I don't see it being very heavy because domestic violence issue he was not arrested for. So, and there's no video evidence that we have seen, so it's still unknown how that's going to go down. But if it's just this reckless driving thing, if anything, I think suspended for 1 game, maybe 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think fine? Or you think just fine?
I don't think he's going to get suspended for this, but I have no idea.
We never know in these certain circumstances. But I'm assuming at least a fine.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably. Anyways, Vinny Curry, who was signed a big free agent signing for the Bucs after he helped the Eagles win the Super Bowl defensive end. He's been cut after 1 season. He signed a 3-year, $25 million contract. Bruce Arians' first big move as head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we might expect to see more moves like that. We don't know about Deshaun Jackson's future as he's still on the books, but we have heard him say he might want to leave. But I actually think
Arians wants him to stay.
I think he's perfect in that offense. I don't think he's
Arians loves the deep ball.
Yeah,
and who throws the deep ball? That is a Jameis Winston, as well as Deshaun Jackson loves running deep. So Arians was probably chomping at the bit for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is a perfect situation for him. But if he does leave, I don't see him getting a lot of looks, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Anyways, that's our show.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and tune us in. We have this Thursday to recap some other things that have happened in the world of football. And also, there is a fantasy football podcast later today, so check that out. And as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff. That's Mark Souza. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.